Okay, I'm back again. Back again. Just had some technical difficulties. Not sure what's going on. But as I said before, I am Trenda Hackett, your web CPA. I wanted to come to you on this Friday just to equip you with some information that I feel like you need to succeed so you can determine what's going on the news about the stimulus payments and all the things that was in the new tax bill that was just signed into law by the president on today. So it is my hope this evening that I can get some of your questions answered. By all means, if you have questions, you can put your comments in the comment box. Or you can visit our website at www.virtualtaxclinic.com. By all means, you can go to the Get Started page, and there's a box where you can type your questions in. When you hit that submit button, we get your questions and we will email you with an answer. So it is my hope I have dissected this law to pull out the things that I thought would probably help you. There are so many moving parts to this, but we do have a final bill that has been signed by the president, so it is actually law. It's actually going to happen. As I said before, start your watch parties. Make sure you share this video with your friends. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're getting so many questions in the clinic about the stimulus payment. I came to you on a previous live video and I shared with you what had been introduced. As I told you, that had not been passed, but pretty much what was introduced was what was actually signed into law. So I want to just tell you what this stimulus payment is. What does it mean? I know you have questions. I don't profess to say that I answer all of your questions, but I've done my best. But what I want to first do is start off with some terminology. There's a lot of terminology that you're going to hear out there, but I want to help you, to give you enough information to help you to explain what it is and what it is not. You may hear terminology like the stimulus check. You may hear stimulus payment. You may hear a recovery rebate. All of those terms are synonymous. So I want to talk about what is the stimulus payment. What is it? What does it mean? So first of all, what is it? What is the stimulus payment? The stimulus payment is an advance payment of a tax credit that the government is giving us or when we file our 2020 tax return. So I want you to think about it like this. So what the law has said, okay, we're going to write into law to give individuals a tax credit on their 2020 tax return when they file it. So what they're saying, what the new law is saying is that, okay, but in 2020, we're going to give you an advance payment, a payment in advance of that credit. So I'm going to call it, instead of a stimulus payment, I'm going to call it an advance payment, and you'll see why it'll be more clear to you. But it's an advance payment of a credit that we can get when we file our tax returns next year. So they're paying it to us in advance. And when I say us, it's individuals that, depending on how much your income is, would determine how much of the payment that you'll get. So as I told you in a previous video, this advance payment, it is $1,200 for a single individual. $1,200 for a single individual, $2,400 for married individuals, and you can get extra $500 per child. So in the last video, I didn't break all of that down because they didn't have all the facts and the things ironed out. So here again, this advance payment of $1,200 or $2,400 or the $500 extra per child. So you may be asking, okay, so how are they going to determine, who gets the payment or will I get the payment? So here's the thing. The payment is based on income, but it is based on income to determine whether or not you get the full credit or not. So here's the first question that I've gotten. I've gotten questions, does it matter if you didn't have income? Does it matter if you just get Social Security? Does it matter if you haven't filed a tax return because you don't have income? Does it matter if your income is disability? There is no income requirement. So whether you have little to no income, you could possibly still be eligible for the advance payment. Now, here's the stipulation. Here's the stipulation. If you were claimed as a dependent on somebody else's return for either your 2018 or 2019, then you won't qualify to get the advance payment. However, when you file your 2020 tax return, you could still get the payment. It's just that you won't get it right now. So it'll be based on when you file your 2020 tax return, which will be next year. So a lot of it is, here again, we're talking about you getting an advance payment in advance. They're sending this money as a part of the coronavirus tax relief to stimulate the economy, because they want to send us this money. They want to get us spending this money now so we can stimulate the economy. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, if you get it now, what does that mean for you later? Some of you have a question, want to know, if I get it now, do I have to pay taxes on it? I can tell you that right now, no, you don't. So here again, this advance payment. So what is it going to be based on? They're going to look at your 2018 or your 2019 tax return. Now, some of you may have filed both already. Some of you may have filed just your 2018 and haven't filed your 2019. Some of you may not have filed either your 2018 or your 2019, but that still does not mean that you're not qualified for the payment. You just won't get the advance payment. So let's break this down. If you have filed just your 2018 return and you haven't filed your 2019 return, they're going to look at your 2018 return. If you have filed both the 2018 and the 2019, guess what? They're going to look at the income on both of those returns, and they're going to see which return will result in you getting the maximum amount of payment. So it could be based on your 2018 or your 2019 return. Now, if you haven't filed tax returns in years or what have you, and you need to file, I would recommend that you at least get your 2019 tax return filed as soon as you can, So here again, now, this credit is going to be based on an amount of your income. While there's no income requirement, but there are some of you that make more than a certain amount. So if you are a single individual and you file single either on your 2018 or your filing status was single on your 2018 or 2019 tax return, that your payment is going to be based on your what's called your AGI, your adjusted gross income. Now, you may say, what is that? I don't know where to find that on my tax return. I'm so glad that you asked. So I'm going to give you this information. You want to jot this down. On your 2018 tax return, you want to look at your Form 1040, page 2 of the Form 1040 on line 7. That's on your 2018 tax return. So if you got your 2018 tax return, you want to find your AGI. And if you single, if your AGI is more than $75,000, you will not get the full payment. Your payment will be phased out. It will be reduced. If your filing status was head of household and your AGI is more than $112,500, then it begins to phase out. If you file married filing joint, then if your AGI, the amount on that line on your 2018 return, Form 1040, page 2, line 7, if that amount is, if you are married and that amount is over $150,000, you will not get the full payment. Now, you need to know what line to look at on your 2019 return. So write this down. So for 2019, on your 2019 tax return, Form 1040 is page 1, line 8B. Line 8B, like boy. So this is what they're going to base on. So they're going to be looking at if you file both of your tax return. Let's say, for example, you've already filed your 2018 and your 2019 return. And let's say on your 2018 return, your AGI on this line 7 was $50,000. But let's say on your 2019 return, you made more income, and let's say that it was $80,000, that same line. So what the IRS is going to look at is going to look at your 2018 and 2019, and they're going to base your advance payment on the return that has the lesser income. So your advance payment will be based on the 2018 tax return with the $50,000 of income, and therefore you get the full amount. They wouldn't base it on the 2019 tax return where you get $80,000. You'd get some payment, but not the full amount. So understand that. That's for those of you that have filed both of your tax returns. Okay. So now let's talk about this extra $500 per child. Here's the stipulation for that. Your child has to be under the age of 17. So if they're over the age of 17, you don't get the extra $500. Okay. And that child cannot have been claimed as a dependent by somebody else. So basically you need to claim this child as a dependent on your return, and they have to be under the age of 17. It's $500 per child. For example, a family of four, let's say a family of four, if you got a husband and a wife, file a joint return, they have 2 children that are under the age of 17. IRS is looking at their 2018 tax return. If their combined income is under the $150,000, they're going to get the $2,400 plus $500 for each of the children. So that's 2 children. That's a total of $3,400 for a family of 4 that files a married filing joint tax return. You may be single, or you file head of household, and let's say you have 2 dependent children that are under the age of 17, or you may have one that is under the age of 17, and then you have one that is over the age. So what would happen is you'll get your $1,200 plus the $500 for that kid that is under the age of 17. Now you may ask, okay, well, what about my kid that's over the age of 17? What about my kid that may be in college? That can my kid or my child get that credit? The stipulation is it depends. If you claim that child as a dependent on your tax return, let's say you have a child that is over the age of 17, you claim them on your tax return as a dependent, and of course you can't get the $500 for them because they're too old, then you may ask the question, well, can he or she get it on their own? And the answer is no, because you claim them as a dependent on your tax return on the 2018 or 2019 tax return. However, you may not get the advance payment right now, but that doesn't mean all is lost, because when you file your 2020 tax return next year, and if you don't carry that child as a dependent and they file on their own, then they can get their money then. They just don't get the advance payment right now. Now, if you have any questions, you can post your questions in the comment and I will come back to them. So I just kind of want to recap a little bit. Some of you have been asking questions, what about if I don't file a tax return? IRS says even if you don't file a tax return, you make little to no income, they're going to fine you. They're going to get your address. It's very important that your address on file with the IRS is updated if you have filed a tax return. If your address has changed since you have filed your 2019 return, primarily the only way you can do it is fill out that form 8822, but it's going to take some time to update it. However, guess what? If you did direct deposit on your 2019 or your 2018 return, the IRS is saying that we'll just put that money in that account. Now, of course, if you don't have that, if you don't still have that current account, there's a system in place if it bounced back. And then, of course, they'll have to send you a check, a paper check. So other questions, another question that I've gotten is, so what if I owe the IRS or I got a student loan debt and they have a hold on my account? Will they take my advance payment? Will that impact my advance payment? And the answer to that question is no. For purposes of this advance payment, they have turned that off. So if you're behind on a student loan, if you owe back taxes to the IRS, for the purposes of this advance payment, your stimulus payment, they're not going to take it. However, if you owe child support, they're not turning that off. So that's the part that's a catch there. So if you owe child support and you know that the child support is going to take your taxes, or they took your taxes, then they're going to take that payment. They're not turning the child support piece off. But if you're delinquent on a student loan, if you owe the IRS back taxes, they're turning all of that off, with the exception of if you owe child support. I have a question that has come in. What if you had two different accounts? Do they send it to the account you use on your 2019 return? The answer to your question is it depends on which return are they going to use to determine your advance payment. Remember, I told you they could either use your 2018 return or your 2019 return. They're going to use the one that results in the best situation for you. So it could be on your 2018 and your 2019 return that your income may be under the amount that you're going to get the max. Whether you do it on your 2018 or your 2019, you're going to get the maximum advance payment of $1,200. If you're just an individual, or if you're joint, $2,400. In that case, they're going to take the most recent tax return that you file. Okay. So what if you had two different accounts? Do they send it to the account you use on your 2019? It depends on if they use your 2019. They're going to send it on the account, to the account that's on the year of tax return that they use, be it 2018 or 2019. Okay, so I'm seeing your questions come in, and I'll answer them as they come in. So there was also, what if you might say, okay, what if the advance payment, I don't qualify for it? Let's say, what if my income was over the amount and I didn't get the full payment? They prorated it. So when they looked at my 2018 or my 2019 return, and if they saw where I was single, my income was over $75,000, and they only sent me like $600, part of the advance payment. All is not lost. The advance portion, you'd get the $600 now. Then, of course, when you get ready to file your 2020 tax return next year, then you get the remainder of what you didn't get based on your income on your 2020 tax return. Now, there's a question about, is this money taxable? Will I have to pay it back? No. This advance payment, or this advance payment on a credit, it works just like if you got the earned income credit or the child tax credit. You don't have to pay it back. But when you file your 2020 tax return, you're going to have to put on that tax return whether or not you got the advance payment, because they don't want to send you a double payment. So there will be some reporting on your 2020 tax return that you're going to file next year, but it won't be that you have to pay taxes on what you got in this year. So I hope that answered that question. There was a question that says, I've lost my job due to the coronavirus. Can I still get the advance payment? Here again, yes, you can. Yes, you can. So I want to, so here's the stipulation. Everybody will get the payment except for a person that has been claimed as a dependent on somebody else's return. So for those of you out there that ask the question, like, what if I just all I get is Social Security, SSI, disability, or what have you? You qualify. However, if somebody else took you as a dependent on their tax return for either 2018 or 2019, then you won't get it. You won't get it, because that's what gets you out of it, is because you are a dependent. Somebody else claimed you as a dependent on their tax return. However, you won't get the advance payment. However, in 2020, if nobody claims you as a dependent on their tax return, when you file your 2020 tax return, you can get your payment then. It just won't be advanced. So I want to submit your questions if you have any questions, because I'm going to talk about some other things that was in this this tax law that is going to be beneficial for us businesses, those of you that are self-employed. Going to talk about some things with nonprofits. Lots of grants monies and loan monies are available in this bill for you. And I won't go into detail on how do you get the money. Those will be conversations that, you know, we'll probably need to have on one-on-one. And here again, there's so many moving parts to this. I'm still digging into it to get all the pieces out and just trying to pull out that will help you. So are there any more questions? Please type your question in. I'll pause a little bit to give you an opportunity to type any questions in. If you want to type a question in about, you know, this is my situation. So what if the dependent, okay, let's see. What if the dependent was over 17? You have to be under 17 for them to get the $500. Absolutely. So if the dependent is over 17, okay, so let's just say we're talking about the $500 for a dependent child or dependent that you claimed on your tax return. And that's another thing. This has to be like the relationship of this dependent is important. It either has to be like your child, it could be your grandchild, like your foster child. It can't be like your brother, or, you know, because that, even if they're under the age of 17, if you can get the child tax credit for this dependent. Child tax credit is for those dependents that are considered your children. So if the dependent was over 17 and they're claimed on your tax return, that dependent cannot get the advance payment. However, when you file your 2020 tax return, if you don't claim that dependent as a dependent on your 2020 tax return, then that dependent can get their payment then, which will be next year. So you have to be under 17. A dependent child must be under 17 for them to get the $500. So let's say you may have a question. So let's say they're going to use your 2018 return. You need to determine, look and see how old was that dependent for 2018. Was that dependent, how old was they, under 17 in 2018, or were they over 17? So it's going to go by the tax year that they use. So if they use 2018 or 2019, they're going to be looking at what was the age of the dependent in that year. Any more questions? What if the dependent was a 20-year-old child and the 20-year-old child also filed taxes? The key thing is, what's making them not get it is if you claim your child as a dependent. If you claim your 20-year-old child as a dependent on your tax return, even if that 20-year-old filed their own tax return, they couldn't claim themselves because the parent claimed them. No, they cannot get the payment. But if you did not claim that 20-year-old child as a dependent on your tax return, and your 20-year-old child filed their own tax return and they claim themselves, they will get the $1,200. So the key is, you have to ask yourself, was this person claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax return? All right, so great questions. Thank you so much for your questions. So here again, if you go back and play this and you got more questions, you can just put it in the comment. I just want to recap. You want to check your 1040, 2018, line 7, 2019, line 8B. That's the income amount that they're going to do it based on. Remember, if whether you had no income, you could still get the payment as long as you have not been claimed as a dependent on somebody else's tax return. Doesn't matter if you get Social Security, disability, all of that, veterans payment, retirement. It doesn't matter about the income. However, if the amount goes up, above a certain amount, then your payment begins to be reduced. However, if your income, if you're single and your income on either one of those tax returns is over $99,000, there's no payment for you, no advance payment. But you may say, well, for 2020, my income may fall in within range. You'll get your money then. You'll get your money then. So I'm talking about what's coming in the check is just in the mail or being direct deposited into your account is the advance payment of a credit that the government is allowing us when we file our 2020 tax return. And I'm saying that is saying because all hope is not lost. The only difference is the timing of when you get the money. You're going to get the $1,200. As long as you're not claimed as a dependent on anybody else's return, you'll get the $1,200. The question is, do you get it now or do you get it later? Okay. And here again, it's not taxable. You don't have to pay taxes on it when you file your taxes. And that was a question, what do I have to do to receive it? Particularly for those of you that don't file tax returns, those of you, because you may be saying, how the IRS going to know that I don't have any income? How are they going to find me? Here again, they can find you, and that's why it's so important that you can change your get your address up to date. You can contact the Social Security office. You can update it with the IRS. Like I said, the quickest way to update it with the IRS is to file a tax return. But if you didn't have any income and you don't have to file, you won't be able to electronically file a tax return with zero. You just can't do that. And so just, they're going to find you. But that's why you have your tax professionals. If you see where you didn't get your payment, there are ways that we can help you to make sure that you get it, but you won't know it until they start sending them out. And you may be asking the question, okay, when are they going to start sending the payments out? So the information that we have, probably at the beginning of April, maybe like the first or second week in April, because they're trying to get these out quickly, because the whole purpose is they want people spending money to stimulate the economy again. So if there are no more questions on the stimulus payment, I'm going to move on to something else. And just remember, if you have not filed your 2018 or your 2019 return, you won't get any advance payment until you file that return. Or if you don't get in on the advance payment, you're just going to have to wait until you file your 2020 tax return next year. And remember, they won't take your money if you owe IRS taxes or if you owe student loans. They're going to turn that off. However, if you owe child support, they're going to snatch it if you owe that child support. Okay, so let's move on to something else. For those of you that may have been impacted, you may have lost your job due to the coronavirus. I want to encourage you to file unemployment. I know the system is probably overloaded, but I want to encourage you to be diligent, because here's what's in the bill. They're offering unemployment. You don't have that 1 week waiting period. So normally when you file unemployment, they've removed that stipulation so people can get their money immediately. Another important reason why you should file unemployment, even if your company have told you to go home and say, we'll call you back when the work pick up, still file for unemployment. There was money in this tax package for those of you who have been sent home, maybe laid off, or may have lost their job due to the coronavirus because the company, the business went out of business. Go and file your unemployment. No 1 week waiting period. They're going to add an extra $600 per week to your unemployment. That's part of the coronavirus tax package relief. But that $600 will be for up to 4 months. So what does that mean? Whatever your normal unemployment would be once you file, it's going to be an extra $600 in that per week. But guess what? You can't get that if you don't file. So you need to file. Also, unemployment is normally the max amount of weeks you can get it is 26. But for purposes of this tax bill, this tax law, they're extending it to 39 weeks. They've added an extra 13 weeks. I'm just checking to make sure, see if we have any more questions. So file unemployment. And guess what? For those of you that have businesses that are self-employed, let's say you are self-employed, you don't have any employees. Guess what? They have something in the package for you as well. They have unemployment assistance for you. File. If you are self-employed, you don't have any employees, file for unemployment, and there is a stipulation in the package for you as well. Also, with the unemployment, they're lifting the requirements for like your work history. They have some restrictions on that. So they're lifting that. So here's my advice to you. File for your unemployment. If you're self-employed and have no employees, file. If you have worked for a company and they have told you to go home and you will call you back when the work pick up, you still need to file for your unemployment. Be diligent. The system may not go through right off, but file. Okay, so let's talk about those of you that may be saying, you know what? I need to withdraw some money from my 401k. I'm not advocating that you do that, but if you have a need and if you have that in the 401k, guess what? They have a provision in the tax law for you as well. So what they're doing, they're waiving the 10% penalty on the money that if you get the money out due to the coronavirus, they're waiving the 10% penalty, the early withdrawal penalty. And guess what else? Instead of you having to pay taxes on that full amount of that withdrawal in the year that you withdraw it, for purposes of the Coronavirus Act, they're allowing you to spread that over 3 years. So let's say, for example, let's say you have, you want to get $15,000 out of your 401k and you're under the age of 59 and a half and you saying, I need money to make it. My payments haven't come in, so we got to make it. So we're going to tap into this 401k. Let's say you get $15,000 out. Normally, you would have a 10% early withdrawal penalty that you would have to, that's tax you have to pay. So what they're saying is that $1,500 penalty, you don't have to do that. When you file your 2020 return, you won't have that penalty because it's due to the coronavirus. Also, on that 2020 return, that $15,000, you would only pay tax on $5,000 in 2020 for the 2020 tax year, then another $5,000 for 2021, then another $5,000 for the 2022. So they're going to tax that $15,000 over 3 years. And this is only for distributions up to $100,000. So you only get this relief for retirement plans, distributions, or withdrawals, or 401k withdrawals up to $100,000. Also in the bill, some of you may say, well, I don't want to withdraw my money out. I want to get it in the terms of a loan out of my 401k. They have flexibility. If it's due to the coronavirus, they've lifted those restraints for you to get the money out of the 401k. And so if you want to make a loan, you have that option as well. So I've talked about the retirement. I've talked about your advance payment, or some of you may call it your stimulus check, but it's your advance payment. Here again, if you have any questions, please be sure to type your questions in the comment. Also, nonprofit organizations. Wow. You know, when I was reading this bill, I was like, wow, these are prime opportunities for a nonprofit organization. So here's what they did. Quite a bit of the funding, it went to the federal government agencies. So these SBA, IRS, Department of USDA, all of, you name a government agencies, there was appropriations, monies, funding in this bill for these federal agencies to provide different services. So there was a detailed list in the bill. So I'm not going to share all of that on this live, but I will say if you are a nonprofit and you would like that information, visit us at www.virtualtaxclinic.com and just put in the comment box that, hey, I'm a nonprofit and I want the information on the federal agencies, because there are grants that are in this package, or also loans. And the cool thing about the loans, while they may originally be loans, but if you take that loan money and do what you need to do with it, it'll turn out being a loan forgiveness. Also, if you owe student loan debt, in the bill, they are suspending your payments up to 6 months, but that is not automatic. You need to contact your student loan company that you're paying. And if you would like to have your payments suspended up to 6 months due to the coronavirus, they are going to do that. It's not automatic. It's something that you have to do on your own. Let's see what else. Here again, I think that's about it. I didn't want to overload you. I've been on a long time, but it's just so much. But I just wanted to pull out those pieces that I thought would really impact individuals, small business, and the smaller nonprofits. So if you have any questions, just know that we're here for you. You can put it in the comment, or you can visit our website at www.virtualtaxclinic.com. I know this is a lot of information. I know it may be confusing, but I hope that I've given you enough information where you can at least maybe kind of calculate what your advance payment might be. You have enough information to go look at those tax returns. If you have not filed a tax return for 2018 or 2019 and you say, you know what, I want to file now, reach out to us at the clinic. We're still filing tax returns. So you reach out to us at the clinic and we can get you a tax return file, get your address updated with the IRS. And so just hang in there. I want to just encourage all of you. I know we're all confined to our homes, but this is a perfect opportunity that if you are behind on your taxes, this is a perfect opportunity to get caught up. And also, kind of get a few dollars in your pocket. So if there are not any more questions, let's see. Somebody asked the question to please repeat the nonprofit portion, please. So as I said, there was a lot of funding in this tax bill for nonprofits, where there was a lot of funding for governmental agencies. So what happens is the governmental agency have these monies that they give to nonprofits in the form of grants. They can give them to them in the form of grants, but you have to know where the money is. So the government agencies, they're the ones that receive the monies. If you want a listing of those agencies and the amounts that they were funded, reach out to the tax clinic. Reach out to the virtual tax clinic at www.virtualtaxclinic.com. We will give you a listing of those federal agencies that were awarded the funds and tell you what they were awarded the funds for, so you can determine if your purpose will meet that need. So this is a prime opportunity for nonprofits. If you're looking for a need to fulfill, this is an opportunity to search for that need. So if you want that list, visit our website at www.virtualtaxclinic.com. Hit the get started button, put in the box and say, hey, I'm a nonprofit. Can you send me the list? And I'll know exactly what you're talking about, and give us 24 to 48 hours to as a turnaround to get that information out to you. Any more questions before I get off? I'll stay on. If you're just wondering, don't leave, don't walk away with the question. This is your opportunity to get your question answered. You may have heard some things on the news. You may have heard some things where some other people have been talking about this, and you're wondering. This now is the opportunity if you want to ask your question. Okay, so what I'd like to know now, those of you that had questions on here, can you let me know whether or not did I answer your question for you? Because I want to make sure that you don't walk away with a question. And y'all, please share this video, because the news is not going to break it down like this. They're going to just tell you, they're just going to give you the basics. Nothing against the news, because they only have a certain amount of time. But I wanted to come on here and just kind of break this thing down and give you something that you can go back and look at. So be sure to go back to look at your 2018 and your 2019 return and just see what those amounts are. And just remember, if you are single, a single individual, or you file head of household, your maximum payment for you individually is $1,200. If you are married individual, you filed a joint return. The maximum payment for couples is $2,400. And remember, there's an extra $500 payment that you can get per child that is under the age of 17, only if that child has not been claimed as a dependent on somebody else's return. But normally that child is your dependent, and if that child is on your return and they're under the age of 17, you'll get the $500 for that. For any dependent child that is over the age of 17, they won't be able to get it because you claim them as a dependent on your tax return. However, remember, this is an advance payment on a credit that we can get in 2020. So all may not be lost for that dependent child that is over the age of 17. It depends on how, whether or not you claim that your child, that child that's over the age of 17 on your 2020 tax return. Then you open up the door for them to get their $1,200. You may not get the $500 for them, but you want to open up the door so that they could possibly get their $1,200 payment. They just won't get it now, because what we get now is an advance payment, but all is not lost. You can get it when you file your 2020 tax return. Okay, well, that's all. Yes, thank you. Thank you for this. So you got your questions answered. Here again, visit us at the www.virtualtaxclinic.com. I am Trenda Hackett, your web CPA. Thank you so much for hanging in here with me. I know this video is longer than normal, but I felt like it is filled with good information that you can use. We're here for you. You take care. You be blessed, and seize every opportunity with your families, with the tax laws that is available to you. I heard somebody say today, now is a grand opportunity for us to tap into the favor of God. Because we have favor with God, we have favor with man. So do your due diligence, make the calls that you need to make, file for your unemployment, call your mortgage companies, call your creditors, and let them know what's going on. They have things in place just for you because of the coronavirus. Because guess what? This tax bill also gives those companies money, so they're able to work with you. So do your part and make the phone calls. I am out. Happy Friday. God bless you. Bye-bye.